Today, we plunge into a haunting narrative of deception and murder that unfolded in Fayetteville, Arkansas, back in April 2015. The story revolves around Johnny Ray Baxter, a thriving real estate agent whose life was savagely ended by someone he trusted deeply. A resident of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Johnny Ray Baxter was a 45-year-old man. He was an esteemed real estate agent, employed by a local firm named Ozark Realty. Johnny Ray was known for his wide smile and amiable nature, which made him a favorite among his clients and peers. He held a business administration degree from the University of Arkansas and had spent over 2 decades in the real estate sector. Johnny Ray was married to Darling Baxter, and they appeared to be a content couple. Johnny Ray was Darling's second spouse. He had an 18-year-old stepdaughter, Lily Adams, who was in her inaugural year at the University of Arkansas, pursuing psychology. Johnny Ray appeared to share a cordial bond with Lily, at least in the public eye. Beyond his professional life, Johnny Ray had a passion for sailing. He was the proud owner of a small sailboat, Dreamcatcher, and frequently sailed on Beaver Lake. He relished spending his weekends on the water, soaking in the wind and the waves. His acquaintances at the local marina remembered him fondly as someone who was always ready to help and share a hearty laugh. In the days leading up to his demise, Johnny Ray was engrossed in a significant property transaction. He was striving to finalize a deal for a substantial commercial property in downtown Fayetteville, a deal that held immense significance for his career. Additionally, he was organizing a surprise anniversary getaway for Darling. He had reserved a cabin in the Ozark Mountains and secured tickets for a concert in Little Rock. He had even chosen a special necklace from a local jewelry store, Sissy's Log Cabin, as a present for Darling. Despite his hectic schedule, Johnny Ray always found time to visit the local coffee shop, Our Sagas, every morning. He enjoyed perusing the newspaper and conversing with the baristas. His preferred beverage was a caramel latte. On the 10th of April 2015, merely 2 days before his tragic end, Johnny Ray was spotted at Our Sagas with a smile on his face, discussing his weekend plans. He appeared to be cheerful and enthusiastic about the future. However, beneath the surface, Johnny Ray's life was not as perfect as it seemed. His wife, Darling, had been behaving anxiously and apprehensively of late. She had observed changes in their daughter, Lily, and harbored suspicions about Johnny Ray's late-night work engagements. Their friends and neighbors had begun to sense the strain in the Baxter household. On a fateful morning around 7:30 a.m. on April 12, 2015, the lifeless body of Johnny Ray Baxter was found. The grim discovery was made by his neighbor, Michael Everly, a 52-year-old retired schoolteacher residing next door to the Baxters. Michael's visit was prompted by a worried call from Darling, Johnny Ray's wife, who had been out of town visiting her sister and hadn't heard from her husband since the previous night. She requested Michael to check on Johnny Ray. Upon arriving at the Baxter residence, Michael found no response to his knocks. Noticing Johnny Ray's car in the driveway, he decided to investigate further. To his surprise, the door was unlocked. As he entered, an eerie silence hung in the air, hinting that something was amiss. Michael called out for Johnny Ray, but the house remained silent. Venturing into the living room and kitchen, he stumbled upon signs of a struggle. Overturned chairs and shattered glass littered the floor. Following the chaotic trail, he reached the master bedroom, where a horrifying sight awaited him. Johnny Ray lay lifeless in a pool of blood, the victim of a brutal hammer attack. The room was in disarray, with blood spattered on the walls and furniture, indicating a desperate struggle for survival. The gruesome discovery left Michael reeling in shock. Trembling, he dialed 911 and described the harrowing scene. The 911 operator attempted to calm him down, urging him to remain on the line until the police arrived. News of Johnny Ray's untimely demise rapidly spread throughout the neighborhood. Maple Street was soon teeming with police cars, and curious onlookers gathered outside, exchanging hushed whispers about the tragic event. Local news stations, such as KSM and K, promptly dispatched reporters to cover the unfolding story, which quickly became Fayetteville's top news. Michael, who had shared years of friendship with Johnny Ray, was left devastated by the brutal turn of events. He later confided in reporters that Johnny Ray was a kind-hearted individual who didn't deserve such a horrific fate. The discovery of Johnny Ray Baxter's body set in motion a complex and heart-rending investigation that would expose hidden secrets and lead to startling revelations about those closest to him. Following Michael Everly's distressing 911 call on April 12, 2015, the police swiftly arrived at the Baxter residence. The initial officers on the scene promptly secured the area, ensuring no one entered or exited the house. Subsequently, Detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter took charge of the investigation. Detective Kinsey, renowned for her keen attention to detail, had an impressive track record of solving intricate cases despite her relatively young age of 38. Her partner, Detective Carter, was a seasoned investigator at 42, recognized for his methodical approach. Together, they formed an effective team. As they carefully examined the house, they encountered evidence of a struggle. The living room bore the brunt of the chaos, with overturned chairs and broken glass strewn about. The kitchen was equally disheveled, with dishes scattered across the floor. Upon entering the master bedroom, they were confronted with a chilling sight. Johnny Ray Baxter's body lay on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood, the result of a vicious hammer assault. Blood splatters marked the walls and furniture, testifying to the violence of the attack. Detective Mitchell Kinsey identified the hammer as the murder weapon and ordered it to be collected as evidence. The crime scene was chaotic and disturbing. The detectives and forensic team took many photos and collected samples. They used gloves to carefully pick up items, making sure not to contaminate any evidence. Blood samples, fingerprints, and the hammer were all collected and sent to the lab for analysis. Outside, neighbors watched as the police worked. The local news stations, KFSM and KNWA, were there too, reporting on the shocking murder. Reporters spoke to neighbors who described Johnny Ray as a friendly and well-liked man. The media coverage added pressure to solve the case quickly. Detectives Mitchell Kinsey and Carter interviewed Michael Everly, who was still shaken from discovering the body. He described finding the door unlocked and seeing the mess inside the house. His detailed account helped the detectives piece together the events leading up to the murder. By the end of the day, the police had gathered a lot of evidence, but still had many questions. Who could have committed such a brutal act? Why would someone want to kill Johnny Ray? The detectives knew they had a difficult case ahead of them, but they were determined to find the answers. The first suspect in Johnny Ray Baxter's murder was his wife, Darling Baxter. Darling was 34 years old and worked as an accountant for a local firm called Razorback Accounting. She was intelligent, meticulous, and hardworking. Darling had a tough past. She became a mother at 16 and worked as a stripper to support herself and her daughter Lily. Despite these challenges, she built a successful career and was known for her strong-willed nature. Darling had recently noticed changes in her daughter Lily's behavior and grew suspicious of Johnny Ray's late-night work meetings. Friends and neighbors described Darling as increasingly stressed and on edge in the weeks before the murder. Some said they heard arguments between her and Johnny Ray. Detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter brought Darling in for questioning on April 13, 2015. Darling appeared calm, but was clearly distressed. She maintained that she had been out of town visiting her sister Nancy in Little Rock. She provided photos and text messages to support her alibi, but the detectives still had doubts. During the interrogation, Darling spoke about her relationship with Johnny Ray. She admitted they had been arguing more lately, mainly about his work and the amount of time he spent away from home. She denied any involvement in his death, insisting she loved her husband despite their problems. The detectives asked Darling about the night of the murder. She explained that she had left for Little Rock on the afternoon of April 11th and stayed with Nancy until the morning of April 12th. Nancy confirmed this story when the detectives called her. However, they couldn't ignore the tension in Darling's voice when she spoke about Johnny Ray and the changes she noticed in Lily. The police also searched Darling's car and belongings for any evidence. They found nothing directly linking her to the murder, but they did find a diary in which Darling had written about her frustrations and suspicions. These entries painted a picture of a woman under immense stress and emotional turmoil. Despite her alibi, Darling remained a prime suspect. The detectives continued to look into her past, interviewing friends, family, and co-workers. They hoped to find a motive or any clue that could tie her to the crime. The pressure on Darling grew as the investigation progressed, but she remained steadfast in her innocence. The investigation into Darling Baxter was thorough, yet many questions remained unanswered. The detectives knew they had to keep digging to uncover the truth behind Johnny Ray's brutal murder. The second suspect in Johnny Ray Baxter's murder was his stepdaughter, Lily Adams. Lily was 18 years old and a freshman at the University of Arkansas, where she was studying psychology. She was known for her outgoing and sociable personality. Her friends described her as bright and ambitious, always eager to learn new things. Lily had a complicated relationship with her stepfather, Johnny Ray. It was revealed during the investigation that their relationship had evolved into a secret affair. This affair made Lily feel guilty and conflicted, especially as she saw the strain it put on her mother, Darling. Detective Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter brought Lily in for questioning on April 14, 2015. Lily appeared nervous but cooperative. She admitted to the affair with Johnny Ray, explaining that it had started about 6 months earlier. She said she had been feeling lonely and confused, and Johnny Ray had been there for her. She insisted she never wanted to hurt anyone. During the interrogation, Lily explained how she had confided in a close friend about the affair and her feelings of guilt. This friend, whose name was not disclosed, confirmed Lily's story to the detectives. Lily described the last time she saw Johnny Ray, which was the night before his death. She said they had argued about the affair and the impact it was having on their family. The detectives asked Lily about her whereabouts on the night of the murder. Lily said she had been in a friend's house studying for a midterm exam. Her friend confirmed this alibi, saying that Lily had stayed there until the early morning hours of April 12th. Despite the alibi, the detectives were suspicious of the emotional turmoil that Lily was going through. The police also searched Lily's dorm room and her belongings for any evidence. They found nothing directly linking her to the murder, but they did find several letters and notes between her and Johnny Ray. These notes showed the depth of their relationship and the emotional struggles they both faced. Despite her alibi and the lack of direct evidence, Lily remained a prime suspect due to the affair and the emotional tension it created. The detectives continued to interview her friends and classmates, hoping to find any inconsistencies or new leads. The pressure on Lily grew as the investigation continued, but she maintained her innocence and expressed deep regret for the affair. The investigation into Lily Adams was thorough, but the detectives still had many questions. They knew they had to keep digging to find the truth behind Johnny Ray Baxter's brutal murder. On April 17, 2015, 5 days after Johnny Ray Baxter's murder, the police received a significant break in the case. It was a cool, cobblestone morning when a jogger discovered a suspicious item in the park near Beaver Lake. He noticed a plastic bag partially buried under some leaves near a bench. Curious, he opened it and found a blood-stained shirt and a pair of gloves. He immediately called the police, and within minutes, patrol officers Karen Lewis and Tom Martinez arrived at the scene. They secured the area and called in detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter. The detectives quickly assessed the situation and bagged the items for forensic analysis. The detectives were cautious, but hopeful that this new evidence would provide a breakthrough in the case. They brought the items back to the Fayetteville Police Department's forensic lab. Forensic analysts found that the blood on the shirt matched Johnny Ray's DNA. Additionally, the gloves had fingerprints that were not Johnny Ray's. This new evidence shifted the focus of the investigation. The detectives revisited their list of suspects and re-examined their alibis. They also reviewed the surveillance footage from the park and nearby areas. This extensive review led them to a surprising discovery. A figure matching Lily Adams's description was seen entering the park late on the night of the murder. Detectives Mitchell Kinsey and Carter brought Lily in for a second round of questioning. This time, Lily was visibly more nervous. She claimed she had gone to the park to clear her head and had no idea about the bloody items. The detectives pressed her for more details, but Lily stuck to her story, albeit shyly. The forensic team continued their analysis and found another critical piece of evidence: hair fibers on the gloves that matched Darling Baxter's DNA. This discovery complicated the case further and indicated the possible involvement of both mother and daughter. On April 18, 2015, the detectives called Darling back for questioning. She seemed calm but concerned when presented with the new evidence. Darling admitted to knowing about the gloves but insisted she had nothing to do with the murder. She said she had worn the gloves while gardening and couldn't explain how they ended up near Beaver Lake. The police were now more determined than ever to solve the case. They knew they were close to uncovering the truth, but needed to carefully piece together the final puzzle. The discovery of the new evidence was a pivotal moment in the investigation, providing crucial leads and intensifying the search for Johnny Ray Baxter's murderer. Hey, true crime case solvers, interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate, leave us a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers. The third suspect in the murder of Johnny Ray Baxter was his ex-wife, Diddy Baxter. Diddy, aged 46, was known for her hot-tempered and aggressive nature. She had a contentious relationship with Johnny Ray and had never approved of his marriage to Darling. Diddy lived in Fayetteville and worked as a manager at a local grocery store, Harp's Food Stores. Detective Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter decided to bring Diddy in for questioning on April 19, 2015. Diddy arrived at the police station appearing defiant and uncooperative. She had a reputation for speaking her mind and not holding back her opinions. During the interrogation, Diddy admitted that she and Johnny Ray had a rocky relationship. She described their marriage as tumultuous and full of arguments. Diddy expressed her disdain for Darling, calling her a homewrecker and blaming her for the end of her marriage. However, Diddy vehemently denied any involvement in Johnny Ray's murder. The detectives pressed Diddy about her whereabouts on the night of April 11, 2015. Diddy claimed she was at home watching TV and drinking wine. She mentioned watching an episode of Dancing with the Stars and going to bed early. There were no witnesses to confirm her alibi, which made the detectives suspicious. The police searched Diddy's home for any evidence that could link her to the crime. They found a few items of interest, including a set of gardening gloves, similar to the ones found at the park. However, forensic analysis showed no blood or DNA on these gloves. Despite her alibi and the lack of direct evidence, the detectives continued to probe Diddy's potential motive. They discovered that Diddy had recently learned about Johnny Ray's affair with Lily, which added another layer of tension and potential anger. Friends and co-workers told the detectives that Diddy had been particularly upset and vocal about the affair, calling Johnny Ray a disgrace and expressing her anger to anyone who would listen. The detectives also interviewed Diddy's neighbors, who reported hearing loud arguments coming from her house in the days leading up to the murder. One neighbor, Mrs. Everly, said she heard Diddy yelling about betrayal and lies. Although Diddy remained a suspect, the detectives found it challenging to gather enough evidence to charge her. She was aggressive during the interrogation but maintained her innocence. The detectives knew they needed more concrete evidence to link her to the crime. The investigation into Diddy Baxter added another layer of complexity to the case as the detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the events leading to Johnny Ray's murder. On April 21, 2015, the breakthrough in Johnny Ray Baxter's murder case finally came after days of investigating. Detectives Sarah Mitchell Kinsey and James Carter found a crucial piece of evidence. A surveillance camera from a nearby gas station had captured footage of Darling Baxter driving toward Beaver Lake late on the night of the murder. This was a significant lead that contradicted Darling's alibi. Detectives Mitchell Kinsey and Carter reviewed the footage carefully. It showed Darling's car, a blue Honda Civic, passing the gas station at around 11:30 p.m. on April 11th. This placed her near the crime scene at the crucial time. With this new evidence, the detectives were confident they had found Johnny Ray's killer. On the morning of April 22, 2015, the police arrived at Darling Baxter's workplace, Razorback Accounting. It was a sunny day, and the local news stations, including KFSM and KNWA, were already covering the latest developments in the case. Darling was in her office when the police entered. She looked surprised but remained composed as they informed her of her arrest for the murder of her husband. As Darling was led out in handcuffs, she maintained her innocence. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. The affair between Johnny Ray and Lily had driven Darling into a fit of rage. She felt deeply betrayed by both her husband and her daughter. The detectives believed that on the night of the murder, Darling confronted Johnny Ray. The confrontation escalated into violence, and Darling grabbed a hammer, fatally striking him multiple times. Darling's arrest shocked the community. Neighbors and friends couldn't believe that the hard-working, intelligent woman they knew was capable of such a violent act. The news spread quickly, with headlines in the Fayetteville Observer and segments on local news stations detailing the arrest. Johnny Ray's family had mixed reactions. Some were relieved that the murderer had been caught, while others were devastated by the betrayal. Lily was particularly heartbroken. She had lost both her stepfather and her mother in a matter of days. The emotional toll on the family was immense. As Darling was taken to the police station, she continued to deny her involvement. However, the detectives were confident in their findings. The surveillance footage combined with the forensic evidence and Darling's conflicting statements painted a clear picture of her guilt. The community of Fayetteville was left to grapple with the tragic events. Johnny Ray Baxter's murder had uncovered deep family secrets and left a lasting impact on those who knew him. The police had solved the case, but the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. The trial of Darling Baxter for the murder of her husband, Johnny Ray Baxter, began on July 15, 2015, at the Washington County Courthouse in Fayetteville. The courtroom was packed with reporters from local news stations like KFSM and KNWA, as well as concerned members of the community. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Robert Stevens, a 45-year-old with a reputation for being tough and relentless in the courtroom. He argued that Darling's motive for the murder was her discovery of the affair between Johnny Ray and Lily. Stevens painted a picture of a woman pushed to the breaking point by betrayal and emotional turmoil. He presented the surveillance footage of Darling's car near Beaver Lake, the forensic evidence from the crime scene, and the conflicting statements she had given to the police. On the other side, the defense was led by attorney Michelle Williams, a 39-year-old known for her calm demeanor and sharp legal mind. She argued that Darling was innocent and that the evidence was circumstantial. Williams suggested that someone else could have committed the murder, perhaps out of jealousy or anger. She questioned the reliability of the surveillance footage and pointed out that no witnesses had seen Darling commit the crime. Throughout the trial, Johnny Ray's family sat in the front row, watching the proceedings with a mixture of anger and sadness. Lily, in particular, struggled with the emotional weight of the trial. She had lost her stepfather and now faced the possibility of losing her mother to a long prison sentence. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching a verdict on August 3, 2015. The jury found Darling Baxter guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was tense as the verdict was read. Darling showed little emotion, while Johnny Ray's family wept and hugged each other. The local news immediately reported the verdict, and the story was covered extensively in the Fayetteville Observer. Judge Lisa Everly sentenced Darling to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She stated that the evidence clearly showed Darling's guilt, and that the crime was a result of intense personal betrayal and anger. The judge expressed sympathy for Johnny Ray's family and hoped the sentence would bring them some measure of closure. The reaction to the verdict was mixed. Some in the community felt justice had been served, while others believed the sentence was too harsh, considering Darling's difficult past and the emotional stress she was under. Johnny Ray's family, however, felt a sense of relief that the ordeal was over and that the person responsible for his death was held accountable. The trial and sentencing marked the end of a tragic chapter for the Baxter family and the community of Fayetteville. The murder and its aftermath had left deep emotional scars, but the verdict provided a sense of justice and a step toward healing. After Darling Baxter's trial and sentencing, life slowly began to return to normal for those involved in Johnny Ray Baxter's tragic murder case. For Darling, now serving her sentence at the Arkansas Department of Correction, life took on a stark routine. She was allowed limited visits from family and friends, with strict rules governing her daily activities. The media coverage surrounding the trial gradually faded, replaced by new stories and events in Fayetteville, like the annual Bikes, Blues, and BBQ motorcycle rally. Lily Adams, now 19, returned to the University of Arkansas to continue her studies in psychology. She struggled with guilt and grief over her role in the affair that ultimately led to her stepfather's death. Lily sought counseling to help her cope with the emotional aftermath and worked hard to rebuild relationships with her family. She distanced herself from media attention, focusing on her studies and volunteer work at local animal shelters. Meanwhile, Detective Sarah Mitchell Kinsey received recognition for her role in solving the high-profile case. She continued her work at the Fayetteville Police Department, investigating other crimes and mentoring younger detectives. Detective James Carter transferred to the Northwest Arkansas Drug Task Force, where he applied his investigative skills to combating drug-related crimes in the region. In the community of Fayetteville, the impact of Johnny Ray's murder lingered. Neighbors and friends remembered him as a friendly and successful real estate agent who loved sailing on Beaver Lake. The local Rotary Club held a memorial service in his honor, and a plaque was installed at the Fayetteville Town Center to commemorate his life and contributions to the community. Johnny Ray's family, especially his first wife, Diddy, found solace in each other's company and support. Diddy focused on her career at Harp's Food Stores and became involved in local charity events, like the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure in Fayetteville. She remained vigilant about keeping her family close and supporting her grandchildren, who missed their stepfather dearly. As time passed, the scars left by Johnny Ray's murder began to heal, though the memory of the tragic events of April 2015 remained a part of Fayetteville's history. The community rallied around the Baxter family, offering support and understanding as they moved forward from the ordeal. This tragic case of love, betrayal, and murder serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. Thank you for joining us on this episode of True Crime Case Files. Stay tuned for more stories that uncover the darkest corners of the human psyche. Until next time, stay safe.